The Scarlet Witch. Um, so I wanted to talk about an archetype uh, that that is derived out of a lot of different archetypes that I've come up with. Very similar, but somewhat different to the ones that I've spoken about in the past, like Her Majesty Claudia. This particular archetype talks about how women use words like magic spells. They use words to craft the reality they want. Um, they don't use words to communicate. They use words to hide their true intentions and to kind of color the world in the way that they want it to be in. So in a way, they use words like a witch would. Uh, in a way, they're like witches with the words and how they use the words. You could say it's similar to how narcissists and psychopaths use words. They don't use words to as a means of communication. They use words as a means of establishing power over other people, and they use words to obfuscate and evade responsibility and accountability. Um, I would argue this is very similar to how women utilize words. You could also apply this to men who are high in a psychopathy or probably have a personality disorder. So, like a narcissistic personality disorder or um, even an antisocial personality disorder, any disorder that, like borderline personality disorder. Uh, any individuals in that spectrum of personality would probably be willing would probably be using words like magic spells. um, so what does that entail, using words like magic spells? um, there are many women that use words and they speak to people, but while they're speaking to people, they're outwardly deceitful and they don't really feel any shame in this. And you could argue that it's for their safety, but a lot of times they're completely safe and they just do it because it actually gives them pleasure uh, to get over on another person. So like the idea that they think they're getting over on a person gives them pleasure and it excites them. It's like they're getting away with a bank robbery. But then also there is the other thing that um, the way that they interact with the person really tends to I think it there's two different particular domains, um, depending on the status of the individual. But I want to get to that in a different video. So to keep it short, words are magic spells. So the point of this video is to understand that there are lower level, witches. There are women who they utilize words as magic spells, but they're not really all that good, and it's easy to see through their tricks. Uh, and these women, a lot of guys, they kind of brush them off or just laugh at them. But then there are the higher level witches, which I would say the highest level is the Scarlet Witch. The Scarlet Witch, they use words as magic spells, but then they also can actually fool the guy into seeing her as omnipotent and seeing her as a true threat. Um, One of the things that guys have to realize, in my opinion, is that when you take women seriously and you take the words they speak seriously, this is when you actually start harboring hatred uh, for them. I think that oftentimes women accuse guys of being misogynist. Um, Many guys aren't misogynist. Most guys aren't. It's just the women actually they actually inculcate this behavior. They actually make the guy want, like, women a lot of times the things they accuse guys of is the very thing that they create, they cultivate in the men around them. uh, the only thing is, one of the main reasons why these guys feel such hatred, if you want to call it that, a strong resentment and deep, frustration, um, is because the women oftentimes operate in silence and they do things without accountability. And that lack of accountability is what breeds the resentment and hatred. Uh, and the only reason why that the guys are getting to the point of hatred is because they're taking the women serious. They're taking what the women say seriously. Oh, hey, Jim. I'm going to come on again. I'm just doing a short clip and then I'll come on again and do a stream. But yeah, uh, the reason why these individuals get captured in the Scarlet Witch or just the witch's grasp is simply because they're taking the person serious. When you don't take the witch serious, then the witch loses power. Uh, it's a fascinating thing. It's like, you have the wizard behind the curtain, and everyone feels, the omnipotence of the wizard. But then when they look behind the curtain, they see this small, snivelly, sad little thing, right? And you realize, oh, like even in the red pill, the manosphere, we look at women and the behavior that they do collectively. We see them as like, we almost raise them to a level of omnipotence. We raise them to these creatures that are capable of great feats of pain and suffering to the average man. But it's like when you really look at it, the only reason we harbor these deep feelings of anger and borderline hatred is because we take them serious. Children oftentimes do things that we would assume is, stupid, or we would look at the behavior and say, oh, that's highly manipulative. And children oftentimes, just like women, they utilize their cuteness, their fluffiness as a means of manipulating people around them. Just like women, they use the same mechanisms. They're just as manipulative and just as cunning. Only difference is, I guess, parents don't really take children serious. That's the reason why a lot of parents don't really harbor a lot of hatred for their children, is because they don't take their children serious. The problem in modern society is we've kind of uh, told women that we're going to start taking them serious now without actually giving them the moral depth and character to be taken serious. And when you try to start treating someone who's equal, when you try to start treating someone who's equal, who's not held by the same standards and doesn't have the same difficulties in life, then it's gonna breed resentment. That's, I mean, this should be like something that people understand, but like, if you're gonna tell the men to take the women serious, but then the women can, secretly emotionally damage the men around them without being reprimanded or without accountability, just in any pass and go, they can do this. Uh, of course, and then the men have to take them serious. Of course, those men are gonna get angry, resentful, and this is gonna ultimately lead to hatred. But what we should do is basically, if there is going to be no repercussion for these actions, then these men should simply not. Basically, we should tell these men not to take them serious and to treat them as if they're children. Now, if the women come to the table in a way that's presentable and they start to hold themselves accountable, even for the things that they do in silence that they don't expect people to talk about, because a lot of the little social gambits, will they'll give the guy the number, or they'll say, hey, I'll call you later, and then the guy doesn't get a call or he doesn't get a text and things like that. These women they're like children, but we're being told that they're adults. But adults communicate their needs, they communicate their dislikes, they communicate to people overtly. We keep making excuses for women. One of those excuses is that oh, well, she communicates manipulatively and like that. covertly because she has to protect herself against men. And it's like, yeah, but this is modern society. We're not cavemen now. Guys aren't walking around beating women with a club and then dragging them back to their caves. You could argue that in the caveman days, but now women actually have access to 911 on speed dial. So and especially if it's broad daylight, like there's not really any danger that's going to come to the average woman. Uh, but yeah, uh, GM, I'm going to do a video after this, but for everyone watching, this is the Scarlet Witch.